In today's video, I'll be showing you the best armors to use in the early stages of the Escape from Tarkov wipe for 1.0 on release. So that's really armors from class 2 all the way through to class 4. Now, this guide is going to be split into two broad sections, and we're going to kind of dip into both as we go along. The first being what to actually use, and the second being how the armor mechanics work, because I know there's a lot of you people who are coming back after not having played the game for a couple of years, and you've probably forgotten how it works, and it is quite complicated, but we're going to break it down and make it nice and simple for you. So first things first, the traders can be quite confusing, so we're actually going to use the flea market screen. You can use this before you get to level 15, which is the new level at which you get access to the flea market, at least the first stage. And it's quite nice because it shows all the stuff just in one big list. So when you're below level 15, you'll only see items from traders, so we can set that in the filters here. And we can start looking through the basics, the first being obviously the class 2. We're not going to spend too long here because you should get out of the class 2 threshold quite quickly. There's really three armors that you can use. There's the module 3M armor, which is this white one here. There's the Packer, which is the old classic, which is this grey one. And then you finally got the 6B2 Flora, which is this one here. Now these are all pretty much the same. You may notice that there's a little difference down here at the bottom. So what this is, these three are all what is known as soft armor. So these ones have armor that is class 2 and it's kind of fixed to your PMC's body. It's part of your PMC's hitbox. These two, the module 3M and the Packer, these have soft armor on the chest area, the back, and the left and right sides, whereas the Flora only has it on the chest and the back. Does this really matter? Well, I would argue at this point, not really. I'd probably just pay for the one that's the cheapest. The 6B2 Flora is only 19k, whereas the Packer is 29,000. Do I think that having two little pieces of class 2 soft armor is going to save you? Basically, no. So I'd honestly just go for the 6B2 Flora. Now, when you're first starting out, 20k does seem like quite a lot to spend every raid on armor when you're dying all the time. However, what I would say is that firstly, it will protect you against scavs using buckshot and other really annoying things. If they've got shotgun slugs, for example, then they can just kill you in one single hit, which is really, really bad. The second part is that these things are really cheap to ensure and nobody wants them. This is probably one of the most worthless pieces of loot in the entire game because it's really huge in your inventory. If I just go and buy one, you can see that this thing is 3x3 and we know we can buy it for 20k. So if you're going to sell it back to the traders, then you're going to sell it back for even less than that. It's only 11,000 back to the trader. So no one's going to pick this up unless they are a scav and don't have any armor on at all. So most likely you're going to get it back. And if you insure it, it only costs you about 3,000 rubles to insure. This means that after you paid for it the first time, you can pretty much just use it over and over again for 3k. I think that's worth investing in. Don't worry so much about the 20k price tag to begin with. Okay, so let's just deep dive into the soft armor bits a bit first, just so we understand exactly what this is doing. So here we were talking about these side plates. Now there's lots of different areas that your PMC can be protected on, and as I said before, the soft armor is actually connected physically to your PMC's hitbox. There's two sections you need to bear in mind. The first section is the armor class here. So when you look over this shows you basically a numeric representation of these two parts down here. So we can see that the chest and the back are class 2 because that's shown by the little armor plate symbol there. And then you have the armor areas, which shows you which areas of your PMC those pieces specifically relate to. On the 6B2, we can see it is the thorax, the stomach, the upper back, and the lower back. And over on the Packer, it is the thorax, the stomach, the upper back and the lower back, and then also the left and right side. Now here's where people start to get a little bit confused. We're going to go into the handbook and we're going to look at the Redoute T5 because this piece of armor has every single soft armor hitbox that's possible in the game. So this might make it a little bit more clear. So here there's a lot of different parts here. And the way to understand it is that the PMC's main torso, so we're not really talking about the head here, the main torso is split into a few different pieces. Right at the top you have the neck hitbox, which constitutes a front of neck and back of neck. That's represented in the tooltip as throat and back neck. So throat is the front section, back neck is the back. These days, any shots into that neck area go into the thorax hitbox. So this is specifically on your character here. The neck shots go down into the thorax. This was a change from about 2 wipes ago when it used to go to the head. So now that goes to the thorax because it's quite hard to protect the neck. There's no plate that goes over it or anything like that. And so it's a little bit more fair that it goes into here now. The thorax hitbox itself constitutes of 4 sections. You have the front of the thorax, which is just called thorax, which I think is where some of the confusion comes in. You then have upper back, which is this part here, and then there are 2 other hitboxes that are unnamed in the soft armor because you can't have soft armor under this side, so the upper side basically, left and right, there is no soft armor that can cover this. There is a slight quirk about this for endgame armor that we can talk about right at the end of the video because it really is quite niche, but for the time being, there's 4 hitboxes on the thorax, but the only ones you're ever going to see is thorax and upper back. Next we have the stomach. This is the one that feeds into the stomach hitbox pool on your PMC. This has 6 hitboxes. It has the front, it has the back, it has the 2 sides, and then it also has a lower stomach and a rear stomach as well. And this is referred to as stomach for the front, lower back for the back, left side and right side, which is what the soft armor on the Packer was protecting, And then you also have groin and buttocks. That's for the front and back of the stomach hitbox. When you get shot, it'll go to that stomach section if somebody shoots you there. Most armors don't have groin and buttocks, so you're still quite vulnerable getting shot in the stomach. There's 2 more rare armor hitboxes, one on each shoulder, which kind of goes through half of the arm, and that's called left shoulder and right shoulder. And then all the other hitboxes after that are plates, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So in summary, the neck has the front and the back, the thorax has the front and the back for practical purposes, the stomach has the front and the back, the sides, and then the groin and the buttocks. And then a couple of armors have the arms, which is called shoulder, but not that many. So bringing it all the way back to the beginning, the 6B2 doesn't protect the sides of the stomach. The Packer does protect the sides of the stomach, but only with class 2, but it doesn't protect the sides of the thorax, so it doesn't really help if you get shot in the chest. The stomach isn't a critical body part component, so if it goes to 0, you don't die, whereas on the thorax you do, which is the reason why I think you may as well just settle for the cheapest option. Early on, another way of getting really cheap armor is looking on Fence for these things. There's 3 half masks, you can get these sometimes on Fence. They're often sold out because people use them to buy Packers to do crafting and things like that, but you can find these in Raid as well, and 3 of those swaps for a Packer, and that can be a cheaper way of getting a Packer armor if you're running out of cash. So next we're going to look at the class 3 armor, and we're going to stick with the ones that are soft armor only for the time being. And the first one I want to point out is the MF Untar. This is on Ragman 1. I know it's blue, but this is class 3, so this helps a little bit against bullets like M855 and PS because they're around the 30 pen threshold. Anything above 30 pen is going to go through this very easily. Anything that's 28 pen and lower will start to struggle against this actually. So it's a nice little upgrade from the class 2s. Now these are quite good because you can trade them for 2 max energies, and max energies spawn all over ground 0. So this can be a good way of at least getting 1 class 3 armor per reset without having to spend actual money. Skier does have this barter for the Juk Press, and I like the Juk Press armor, but the problem is it's a horse and a pom-pom hat. You need horses later, they're kind of a rare-ish item, so very unlikely to run into these. So the only other one that I think you're really going to get access to, which is a soft armor version, is this guy, which is the Kora Kulon body armor from Prapor, and you can only unlock this after you do search missions. This is the one you have to go to woods, and you have to go to USEC camp, and you have to find Prapor's convoy. It's the one where you get the compass afterwards. Once you've done that, you can buy this, and it's 47k, which I think is a bit expensive. It's really heavy, 11 kilograms, and this looks a lot like the 6B2 Flora, except in class 3, so it's just front and back as well, so it's a little limited. The next body armor that we're going to look at is an old classic, and this is the 6B23 1 EMR. And the reason why we're going to talk about this one next is, firstly, it's a very cheap barter here for a propane tank, so if you get that out, you can get this piece of armor. But what's special about this is that this brings us into our actual armored vests with plates. So this vest itself has a front plate in it that's not critical, it's not part of the actual armor itself, and can be removed. This is a 6B12 ballistic plate, and this thing is level 3. So what happens here? So this armor in particular, it says armor class 3, and that's the maximum class that it's got on it. But if you look into the little tooltip, you can see that most of the armor is class 2, except for the front plate that is class 3. So when you get shot in the front, a bullet has to go through the class 3 armor first, and then the class 2 armor afterwards. This one is also interesting because you do get the neck protection here. As we were saying before, getting shot in the neck means that that damage goes into your thorax hitbox. However, there are some scav bullets, things like Ultra Nozzler, or some of the shotgun slugs, which can just kill you in one shot with 85 damage to the chest if you're not wearing any armor there, and class 2 actually will stop most of those. The unfortunate part about this is that there is no backplate. There is only a class 4 backplate available for this particular armor, and it's only on Prapor 2, so you're not going to be able to get it straight away. But do remember that you're going to have class 2 anyway on the back because that's part of the soft armor that's inbuilt into this particular rig. Now let's just take a second to have a look at the armor plate itself. When you look into the armor areas, you can see we now have this extra hitbox called F.plate. And the thing about plates always come up in capital letters. We're going to go back to look at our big armor so that we can show you all of the possible hitboxes. So on this one, you've got a front plate, a back plate, a left plate, and a right plate, and these are all removable. And in the armor areas, you can see there's FR plate, back plate, L plate, right plate. So all of the ones that are capitalized, those ones are actual plates that are replaceable or changeable. So you can put whatever you like in here. Outside of that, the rest of the rig is class 3. So I head back to our 6B23. So you can see here we have quite a lot of hitboxes. This one actually does have groin and buttocks as well, which stops you getting buckshotted. It has neck too, and it's also got the F plate hitbox. And the thing to know about front plates is that the front plate does most of the heavy lifting in most armor, especially from the mid game and onwards. We've been around the houses with BSG and exactly how this worked. All armor used to work like soft armor a long time ago, then they changed it to realistic hitboxes, and then it turned out that that just wasn't really going to work very well, and the variance was super high on firefights. Sometimes you just died in 2 hits, sometimes you died in 8. So it was kind of random, and so we've gone all the way back round to basically where you're protected pretty much exclusively by the front plate and a bit by the back plate. The front plate is a lot more powerful than the back plate. It goes all the way around the arms and all the way up to kind of the edge of the back plate here, and the back plate just does this last little section. So the front plate does most of the work. it's almost impossible, and there are some very fringe cases again where you can do it, but it's almost impossible to shoot through to the thorax hitbox without going through the front or back plate first. So 90% of the protection you get on any particular armor is dictated by the front plate and the back plate that you've got in, and of that it's probably 70-30 front plate to back plate in terms of importance. Okay, next we're going to look at the Juk press, except we're going to look at it a slightly different way because there's a way to build it in the hideout. And the press is one of my favorite armors because you can make it for one aramid, one ripstop, and one of these Juk 3 ballistic plates. And you can actually get all these three from other places. So the aramid fiber you can get from crafting packers. You can actually see this in the lavatory here. This is all lavatory level 1. You can get ripstop from crafting scav vests. So a scav vest turns into 2 ripstops. And you can get scav vests either from scavs themselves, or you can buy them on Jaeger for a single slickers as a barter here. And then finally, this piece, the Juk 3 ballistic plate, you can get these from giving grand juices to Prapor. This means it's quite easy to assemble the items here, and what you get out is a press base, along with another Juk 3 ballistic plate front, and a PRTCTR lightweight ballistic plate. So this effectively creates a class 3 Safi plate for free. The press armor is interesting because it takes a diamond-shaped plate in the front and a Safi plate in the back. This means if you find something that's class 4, oftentimes it won't go in unless it's the very specific type of plate that the press armor takes. And this is kind of where the Cuirass comes in. So this is the last armor we're going to look at, and that's actually on Ragman 2, and this thing is 50k, but the beauty of the Cuirass, although it comes with class 3 plates by default, you can replace these with any of the Sappy plates. So the Cuirass is very, very general and very useful for this stuff. If you find, say, another armor that's got class 4 plates in it, for example, you could swap one 4 plate in the front and take the 3 plate and put it in the back of another armor, and then you've got a 4 at the front and a 3 at the back, rather than losing all your class 4 plates in one particular rig. Up until this point, we haven't really looked at any of the armored rigs. I don't think they're very good, to be honest with you, and at Prapor 2, you can buy this, the 6B5 16 Yule, which I refer to as the bad Yule, and this is because although it says armor class 3, when you drill down into it, it's actually only class 3 on the chest and the groin, the stomach area, and class 2 on the back. So if you're running away, you're going to get killed by stuff that's with 25 pen or so, and even PST is going to go through this. Another one that I think is a bit of a trap is over on Ragman 2, and this is these. These are the 6B3TM rigs. Sometimes you find these from scavs as well. This thing used to be godly because it was class 4 all over, but again, this thing looks like it's class 4, but it's actually also class 2 at the back. So you just got to be a bit careful about these. They can get you killed without you realizing, if you don't realize that they're only protected kind of well at the front and not so much at the back. Another thing to watch out for with rigs in general, I'm going to use the Eagle Allied rig, this is a rogue rig, is that some of them don't have any soft armor whatsoever. So this one, for example, does have class 3 armor in here, but that's it. If you take these plates out, there's nothing in there. It's basically just a bag. So these are not really ever worth wearing because you can just get something else like the Cuirass and put the plates in there, and then you've got at least class 3 with class 2 underneath. There's really no reason to use these, to be honest, and just make sure that you do actually have soft armor on it because there's probably an alternative that you can buy that's better. So moving up to class 4 armor. This is pretty limited outside of Ragman 3 until you do some quests. So Ragman 2, you can get access to some. The first one is this, the 6B13 Flora. I feel like class 4 is just everywhere at the moment. Between Twitch drops and the fact that they spawn all sorts of camps all over the place, class 4 armor is just everywhere in the game right now. But if you do need an extra guaranteed source of it, you can complete his quest Audit, which is this one here, where you go to the financial building over near the crashed train extract, and that unlocks the 6B13 Flora armor, and that means you're then able to buy this for 64,000 rubles from Ragman every reset. So the Ragman quests are quite important to getting guaranteed class 4 on the traders. The next one is if you do database part 1, this gives you access to the Thor concealable. This is kind of notable because although it doesn't have any neck armor, it does have a class 3 body. So underneath the plates, you have a class 3 soft armor. And soft armor outside of very specific rigs like the 6B3TM we looked at, they're almost always either class 3 or class 2. For early armors, you're normally choosing between a class 3 armor that doesn't have neck or a class 2 armor that does have neck, and that's typically kind of where you're making your decision. But the Thor is quite useful because it's class 3 underneath and comes with class 4 plates as well, and this can block rounds like M856A1 really quite well. The problem here is that this is 2 diaries as part of the barter, and these are relatively expensive because people stick them in the cultist circle. This used to be a really good barter, but these days it's not so good anymore. The last one, which is a good example of one of those special armors, is the other Yule. This is the darker green Yule and is much better than the other one. This one is actually class 4 all over, except for the neck, which is only class 2, but that's fair enough because a lot of armors are like that. To get this one, you have to go and complete the Ballet Lover quest, again from Ragman. I haven't quite done this one yet because I've not done that much on streets. As you can see, that one is here, and you get the unlock for this, and this is about 65k as well, a bit like the 6B13. Now, outside of these guaranteed ones, the flea market opens up at 15 and you're able to buy various pieces of armor. And sometimes the flea market is one of the best places to look for these things. When you're looking through the body armors, you can see whether there are plates in them or not, because you can see there it's got 2 out of 4 or 1 out of 2. And a lot of the stuff that you get from players won't have any armor in it at all, unless if you scroll up. So this press armor in particular has got one of these in it. So it's got a Juk 3 ballistic plate if you're looking for that, which is quite interesting. And as we move up through the armors, you can see that some of them do have armor and some of them don't. The ones that I would particularly look out for are the ones that come from scavs, because those are the ones that people are most likely going to be flipping on the fleet. So you have the 6B13 Assault. These don't have anything in them, but if you go right to the top, you can find one here that is 63k, and that has got both the front plate and the back plate in it of full durability, so that's probably a bit of a steal. That's about the same price it is from Ragman. There's another version of the 6B13 as well. If you scroll through this one probably just has the back plate, yeah. And if you scroll down, we can find one that's 2 out of 2 like that, and that's another one that costs 60k. And these plates are really good to repair because they're armor steel. Anything that's armor steel or ultra high weight molecular polyethylene, those two are the best to repair. Everything else is kind of either medium or ceramic, which is really bad. Another one to look for is the 6B23. You want to be looking for the 2 version, because the first one is the propane armor that we looked at, and this is class 3 base. The 6B23-2, this one has a class 4 in it by default. So this one, 2 out of 2, it's almost certainly going to come with the class 4 plate, which it does, which is very, very nice. And that's only 60k, so that's pretty good value. Then if you want to go for the sappy stuff, the armors I tend to look for are the MMAC. This is one that people flog on the fleet all the time. So this one here, that's 2 out of 4. And if we open this guy up, we can see this has got monoclete plates in it, which are one of the best class 4 armor plates because they're so light. They're only 1.3 kilograms. This makes the entire rig with 2 plates in it 5.5 kilos. I really like the MMAC. It doesn't have neck on it, unfortunately, but even if you just wanted to pull the plates out and then ram them into a Carassa instead, you'd still just have an MMAC that you could then either sell back to Ragman or put back on the flea for 30k, for example. This means you're basically getting these plates for very little. Another good example for this is the Trooper. USECs all start off with a Trooper, so there's lots of Troopers floating around in the economy. If we scroll down, none of these have got armor in them, but let's just keep going until we find one. And there's one there for 82k, and again, this has got 2 monocletes in the back. Do be careful and make sure that you right-click and open it up and see what's in there, because technically speaking, somebody could go in, take a Carassa and put the 3 plates in there instead and then list it up on the flea and kind of scam people. So do just make sure and double check what's actually in here before you buy. And the other one is the Banshee. This is another good one to look for because again, this is monoclete plates. People aren't looking for these very much. There's actually not many here. I actually bought one earlier for about 45k, but this one also has monoclete plates front and back. And the Banshee's also not a bad rig. It's got quite nice space in it, and this one's got 3x1 in it, which is cool. Now, I just unlocked Prapor 3 the other day, and I want to show you a new piece of armor that I've not seen before that has just come to the game this wipe, and it is called the 6B45. This thing is a class 5 by default, but you only get access to that at level 4 traders. At level 3, you get access to the 6B45 body armor, the 6B45 armored rig medic, and the 6B45 armored rig general purpose at Prapor 3. And the funny thing about this is that there's no plates to them, so these are just a carrier. Why would you spend 100k on this, you ask? Well, the reason is that this thing has a class 3 armor underlay, and it has neck as well, which is actually pretty rare. Usually only the good armors like maybe the Juk or something like that has that particular set of parameters, and you can pretty much put whatever plates you like in here because it takes sappy front and back. I'm currently wearing one of these myself because I think this is really cool, and I've got monoclete plates in it, and then at level 3 Peacekeeper you can put class 5 side plates in as well. This does make the armor relatively heavy. It's not the lightest armors of all time, but the difference between the 3 of these is that these 2 are armored rigs and this one is a body armor. So the body armor version you're going to put on and you can wear a rig separately with it. This is 3.65 kilograms. And then you've got these 2 guys which you put on and they're all in one. So these actually have space in them like this. So the medic version looks like that. And you've got the general purpose one which looks like this. Both of them have got a 2x2 slot, which is actually pretty cool. That's quite rare. And the medic one has got something that I've literally never seen before on any armor or any rig ever, which is a 4x1. I'm not even sure what you'd want to put in there. You could technically put a whole RFB in here with no mag. You could put an unfolded TOS in there. There might be some shenanigans with this, to be honest. I don't think I've ever seen a 4x1 slot before. I think this is the first. But technically speaking, these 2 are very, very similar. The general purpose one is very slightly lighter. And when we look at the difference between the 2, whether you should just buy a body armor and a rig versus the general purpose one, all I would say is that it's got 16 slots, so it's actually pretty good already. And if you pick the lighter of the 2, the difference between these 2 armors is only about 700 grams, which is getting towards the low end of rigs in this game. The lightest rig that I use, which has got decent size, is this one, the Thunderbolt. This also has 16 slots, just like the rig does, and this is only 0.6 of a kilogram, and costs about 20k. So when we're thinking about buying this stuff from the trader, because you don't need to buy a vest with this means that this costs about 86k actually, if you're comparing the cost between these two things, because you're going to have to buy a rig if you buy this thing. So I really quite like this general purpose armor rig. It's slightly lighter than the other one. I don't really need the 4 slot, has decent space, and it can take sapphire plates front, back, and sides, which is awesome. This is probably my new favorite just run-of-the-mill armor, and yeah, it's a little bit heavy, but all the others of this type with neck and class 3 at the same time are really hard to come by. For those people who've been very patient and waited until the end of the video, I wanted to talk about some very little micro niche piece about armor, because I spoke a little bit about not being able to reach the thorax without shooting through a plate, which is almost true but not entirely true, and this is for a bizarre reason which comes on certain rigs, and it's usually the end game rigs, things like the Ars Armor CPC Mod 1 plate carrier. This is a really good armored rig because these days the plate covers the whole of the front. But what's really interesting about these is that on the armor areas, if you look there, it has left side and right side, and that is it for soft armor, which is very, very curious. Now this means that the sides of the stomach are protected by the soft armor on this particular rig, which is class 3, but it does have a chest armor and a back armor as soft armor, so why doesn't that appear in the armor areas? Normally you would see thorax and stomach in that little hitbox there, but we don't. And what happens here is that this is a special type of armored rig, and there are a few of them in the game, where the soft armor follows the hitbox of the plate. If you take all of the plates out, you will still see front plate, back plate in there. And this has some small implications because the front plate hitbox is not quite the same as the thorax and the stomach hitbox. The thorax and the stomach hitbox is connected to your PMC's body directly. It's on your hitbox. The front plate and back plate hitboxes are outside of your PMC, and they are wider than any of the individual hitboxes. Firstly, however, there is a tiny, tiny little gap around the edge of the front hitbox and underneath the armpit where you can technically shoot into the thorax and avoid the armor plate altogether. For most armors, this doesn't matter because you have soft armor underneath and it catches all of those rubbish scav bullets, but very, very, very occasionally, we're talking 1 in 100 raids, do that little piece and take max damage to your thorax. If you're then also doubly unlucky and it happens to be something like Ultra Nozzler or a 12 gauge slug, it can just kill you instantly, which is very, very annoying. However, it doesn't happen very often, and it does have a hidden bonus and benefit, which is we talked right at the beginning about the fact that soft armor cannot protect underneath the armpits on the sides of the thorax. There is no soft armor area for that particular hitbox, but the ramifications of the soft armor following the front plate around the body means that the soft armor on these particular rigs also covers the thorax underneath the arms. Sometimes this makes a little bit of difference. Imagine you're wearing a class 5 armor with a class 3 plate underneath and somebody shoots you from the side. Normally, it goes through the class 5 section around the armpit, and if it beats that, it just goes straight through. On something like the AACPC, if you get shot from the side and it goes through the class 5 armor, you then have a second layer of class 3 underneath which can technically catch that round. It depends on the bullet, and it works on cartridges at around the 45 pen range the most. When they go through, they tend to lose enough penetration to go down to about 35-ish, at which point the class 3 has a chance to stop it as a second layer. This is a really, really niche and fringe benefit, but it's the argument that I've always made that these soft follows the plate armors are technically the best for high-end PvP, because class 2 or class 3 armor anywhere else on the body that's not protected by a class 5 or 6 plate first isn't going to save you against any bullets that any player is using that's 40 pen or higher, and in the end game everyone is using that. So you may as well not have soft armor at all unless it's under the plate, in which case this is, because the soft follows the plate all the way around the body. If that was confusing, I'm sorry. That's why I left it right to the end, because it is very, very niche. And it doesn't really apply at this moment as well, because we don't have access to a lot of these type of rigs at this point in time. But there's a few. There's the Ars Armor CPC Mod 1. There's also another one called the Stitch Profi. And I'll put up a little list of the class 3 armors that this does actually apply to, because these are sort of the end game ones. But if you do have any questions about it, feel free to jump into my live stream and ask me. I'm still going to be live probably for another week every day while the wipe's going on, so it's a perfect time to come and chat, and we love doing that on stream. So as always, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as usual, have fun in your raids.